Hello and welcome back to Concept First to Mastery. So we've been looking at Introduction to HTML, and before now, in this particular section, we want to look at working with tables, HTML5 tables, right? And it promises to be exciting. So just a quick look at what we'll be working on. So we'll be working on this other table, right? After looking at the basics, just to demonstrate how to work with tables, right? But before we do this, as the practices, we'll first of all look at some of the basic things about HTML5 tables and the children elements that are meant to be used. Once we walk through that, we'll actually we'll build this together. So without wasting time, let's get started. What I'll do is, as the normal practice, we just check into the projects we've been working on, and we'll create uh a new folder for the project, right? We just call it task 4 for now, right? And just like I've been doing, I will just change directory into the particular project, right? So that we can work from there, cd into that. Then this tells me already that I'm in task 4. Then I want to open that folder in VS Code, code dot, right? Again, if this is strange to you, just check the previous video. I think I mentioned what that is all about in that particular section. So here, this is the folder that represents the project that we want to work on, right? Quickly, we'll create the index file, which is the entry file, index.html, right? Then inside this particular index.html, we can have the boilerplate to start with, which is just a way to quickly use emit, right, to generate the basic things that you want to start with when working with HTML. So I'll just click on that, right? Again, if you don't know, if yours is not working, right, just exclamation mark and enter. You have to install emits. I've talked about how to do that in the previous sections. So install emits and make sure that once you install emits and that is installed properly, you'll be able to have some auto completions. So here, let's just set the title of this to working with tables, right? So for now, let's leave out every other thing that we usually have to the head section, right? We just want to focus on working with table. So when working with table, okay, before I dive in, let's quickly get some basic things on our hand, right? Before we start doing that. So just to move through the flow I have here quickly, the objective here is to learn how to structure and display data in table, right? Just like we have here. You can see that this is highly organized. This is another table where you can see from the admin side, you can quickly see what is going on with every order, whether it has been processed, whether it has been delivered, whether it was cancelled, right? As the case is here. And the other dates, the total of the order, the price and the quantity the person ordered, the product, and all that, right? So table is very, very, when it comes to table, it's very, very useful. Um, so introduction to HTML tables. Like I said, tables are used to actually organize data into rows and columns. So maybe you don't know what rows are. Rows are actually vertical direction. That's layman, right? Vertical directions. Data arranged in the vertical direction, right? Or a structure that flows in vertical in the horizontal direction. Sorry, I mean that's row. Then for columns, right? Columns refers to the vertical direction, right? So, and what you have here, for instance, you can see that this is ordered into rows and then columns. We have how many columns here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And we have about 10 or 11 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. So that's just it. So, what's the usefulness of organizing data into rows and columns? It's useful in displaying structured data. So, like statistics, schedules, contact lists. I mean, the list is endless. You can also see here we are dealing with other tables, right? Um, Moving away from that, let's just learn the basic things about HTML. The first thing that comes to your mind is the HTML element, the table element, right? The table element is what represents the table when you're working with HTML. So you can now have several table children elements like the table row, the table cells, the table head, the table body, and all that, right? So let's just see that, then we'll learn how to organize data into it. So for instance, you can see I have the table element here. And inside the table element, we have two rows. This is the first row, right? And this is the second row, right? And the way this works is that this just means that we have two rows now on this table, right? This particular row can have many columns. So as the case is now, we have row 1, cell 1, row 2, row 1, cell 2, right? The same thing here, we have row 2, because that's the second row, TR, row 2, cell 1, row 2, cell 2, right? If you have another one, that will be row 3, cell 1, and on like that. Okay, maybe that is not still clear. Let's have that demonstrated here. We have table, right? Then we can have TR, which is the table row. So let's say this is row, let's just put a name, right? Let's say good, right? Let's say that's the first, okay, let's do it this way. That's the first row. Then the T cell, let's say good, right? So let's say I want to have 3 items in here. Good. Let's say that's the name. I can say 13. Let's say this is representing the age. And I can say TD again. I can just say address, let's say Lagos, right? So that will represent the first row, right? And we are going to have 3 columns there automatically. So if I want to launch this so that we can see quickly, can just do it this way. So you can see we have 3 columns here, good, 13, Lagos. Yes, it would be good that this is having headers, right? So that we can know what those contents or those data are meant for. We'll also get there, right? So that's what we have there. Then if you want more, you can also do something like this, right? Yeah. So this is going to be the second, this is the first row now, in the real sense of it. This is the first row, right? Which is having 3 columns, right? This is the second row, this one, right? So let's say this one is Banji, right? Let's say this one is 20, and let's say this is Ibadan, right? So once we have this, if you come back here, so you can see now that we have the second row. So on and on like that. If you want 10 rows like we have here, right? You just make sure that you have 10 TRs, right? Used directly in the table, in the table, element. So that's it with that part, right? Then moving on to the next, we have the table headers, right? And the element we use to represent table headers is the TH, right? The TH, which represents table head. So usually this table head will be placed inside the table row, just like you have here. So let's say, for instance, what I have there now, I want them to have headings, right? I can come here and use that element. So here I'm going to have, let me just put a label here that says head, right? Header. So not just any header now. Let's say table header. So I'm just going to have here TR, right? And here we can have TH, which represents the table head, right? And here we can have we can just have, let's put a label of name, for instance, name. Then I can have a second one that says age, right? And the last one that says address. No, not like that. Yeah, address. So that's the title. If you come back here, you see that it's titled now, name, age, address, right? This is not styled, so you won't expect it to look like this. We'll get there, right? But we just want to learn the basics. So you can see that things are already arranged into rows and columns already, right? So that's that. When you want to set the table headers, right, you use the TH element, and usually it's placed within the table rows, just like the TDs also are placed within the table rows, So adding table data, I think I've already done that, right? Because these are the table data. So we have the table head, and these are the data for each column, just like we have here. This is the table heads, right? And these are the data. So for the two rows we have the good and Banji representing data for name, 13 and 200 representing data for age, address, Lagos and Ibadan representing Lagos and Ibadan, right? Representing data for address. So that's what I mean by adding data to table, right? It's kind of straightforward. The element you use for that is the TD, which is the table cells, right? And usually it goes inside the table row. So when you have the TD, right, you can have anything in there. So here I can see have something like, instead of putting just name here, I can have image here, right? I can have image here. I can have anchor element. So I can even have a div inside here, right? But make sure that in terms of the structure, make sure that whenever you have your TR, what follows is expecting TDs, which are the children element that are expected for the table row element, right? So it will be wrong to now come and put image here. It's not, the table row is not expecting image as its direct child, right? It's expecting TD, but inside the TD, you can now start setting any element that you want. And you will see that I did that also in the project that I'll be working on, because that's how I got the table in here. It's inside the table cell, right? So that's it with that. I just want to quickly run through the styling. Also, will be styling, right? And I'll be looking at common CSS properties that, right, that can be used to style table. Here we are just targeting whenever you are styling an element. I know we've not really touched styling, right? Whenever you are styling an element, it's very simple. The basic one I'm going to talk about now is the tag selector, right? You must select an element to apply style to it. So the style you apply to it is going to be in terms of properties and values. So you need to know what properties are available, right? And the values that can be set. So for table now, we have the table tag, right? And here in this block of code is where this curly braces, right? In between there is where you set the properties that you want to be applied to the table element. Here I'm just saying the width property, the table should be 100%, right? Here now it's not 100%, right? But this one is 100%, right? So it's as straightforward as that. Then the border collapse too is just to collapse all the border into one. Then here this is what we call group selector, right? We have the table head and the table cell. I want to apply the same style to them. So instead of doing them separately, right, which will still work, but there's what we call don't repeat yourself, or dry. In programming, don't repeat yourself. So instead of having these duplicated in two places, we can just apply to the same element once, and that's what is happening here. We are saying the border should be 1 pixel solid with this hexadecimal color. Then the text align to the left and padding of 8 pixel. So if you don't know what padding is all about, padding is the space between the border and the content. There's what we call box. There's what we call box model, right? In CSS, every element is a box. So, and you know how boxes are. Boxes, they have borders, right? They have content, they have space outside them, they have space between the border and the content. So the space between the border and the content represents the padding, and I just want that to be 8 pixels. That's what it is saying. Then there's what we call child selector too. So you will still learn about this. Just keep on following me, right, in these sections that we are having. So here we are just targeting the table row, and we are saying we are using the pseudo selector here, which is the end child selector. We are saying you should select all even table rows and apply background color of this off-white F2, F2, F2. So right. So that's basically what we are doing there. And again, if you have never started before, it's very simple. You target your element, right? Then you have the curly braces. Then you define the properties you want to be applied to the element in there, right? The same thing. You can see that all this is going into the style element. We'll still talk about styling where we can have external, inline style, and internal and all that. So let's move away from that, right? Some advanced features in table. We also have row span and column span. So for instance, you can have something like this here and say Ibadan should be column span, or let's say row span. Okay, let's just column span. You can say column span of 4, right? Which should mean it should span four columns. But of course, since everything is just 2 columns, like we have said, so we are not even seeing that that behavior, right? Okay, let me do it on let me do it on Lagos. No. Yeah. So you can see that we have that, right? We have that here. So that's just it. Let's see. Let's move, since we've picked some of the basic things that we need to pick, right? Let's start working on the project itself. So I'll just clean up this, then we'll start. So the first thing I want here is the caption, right? The caption, because you'll notice that here I have the caption, other products table, right? So it's not styled to start with. So I'll just say other others products table. Right, so that's the first thing. Then the next thing is the T row, just like I've explained. And inside there, we are going to have the headers. So let's just say headers. Headers, and this is going to be inside the header. Don't forget I said the element to use is the TH, right? So inside the TH, you can now start having the different headers that you want represented in the project, right? Which is kind of basic. So here, what I want here is I want the order ID, right? We also want, let's just do that quickly. Order ID, um, order ID. Let's have product name, right? Then let's have product photo, product photo, right? Then let's also have customer. So usually this will be according to the design or Figma design or whatever design you have. So here we are going to have quantity, right? Quantity. Then let's also have the price, right? The price. Then let's have the total, right? Then let's have the order date, when the product was order date. Then finally, let's have a status so that we know what's happening with that. Let's just say status. So those are the table heads that we are going to have, right? And if you come here, you see that we're already having things shaped out, right? So then let's have one row at least to demonstrate what we are talking about. So here I'm just going to say just say table data, right? This is where the table data goes into. For the first row, we just want data for all these table heads that we have, right? So the first one, let's say here, when you're populating data, you're using TD, like I mentioned. So here we want 001 as the order ID, right? Then let's just start doing that. Then the next thing is the product name. So let's say the product name here is smartphone. Smart phone, right? So let's say the next thing, that is the photo, right? So currently we don't have photo, but like I told you, we can now bring in IMG here to represent the photo, and I'll just put an auth here, right? So let's say here we have smartphone as the alternate text, then the link SRC. So I'll bring in some images, but for now, let's just leave it as blank, right? Then the next thing is the customer. So let's say this customer name is John Smith, right? Then the next thing is apart from the customer is the price, right? Or the quantity, which is true. The quantity is true. Then the price. So let's say the price here is $500, right? $500. So just follow me with this, right? I don't want this to be long. So I'm just going to populate one data, right? Then I'll bring in the rest. I want to do at least 10 so that we can have enough to work with. But of course, once you know how to do one, you can do the rest, right? Um, then we have the total is going to be, let's say, 1,000 because the person ordered two, $1,000, right? Let's say the date. Let's say the date is 2024/07, right? 15th. So what else again? All right, let's say the status now. Let's say the status here is processing. Processing, right? And I want to apply a style here too. I'll use class here and I will call it processing so that I can use that to give that special class for processing, right? Like we have here, processing is purple, delivered is green, right? And cancelled is kind of red, but not like the real red. So that's it with what we have now. If you check here, right, you see now that we have the first item. So I want to have like 10. Then I want to have the images coming. So I'm going to bring the image again. Don't forget the link to this particular resource will be in the description section, right? The GitHub repo will be in the description section. So you can actually go there and make use of the images that I have there, right? So that's it. Okay, before I bring in the images, one thing you will notice is that this is using a different font. This font looks good, right? Compared to this. So let's bring in a font that represents what we have on this design. So what you can do is just go to Google Fonts. You go to Google Fonts, just type Google Fonts, right? And go to Google Fonts, browse it. So the style I use there is Roboto. So you have different styles. The choice is yours, but you can see Roboto here. You click on it. So usually when you click on it, you'll be able to select it. But for me, I have already selected it because if you look at this cat icon here, if I click on it, I already selected Roboto, which is here. So I'll just say what you do is that you download it and link to it locally, but I don't want to do that. I just want to use the code given to me, right? So here, you just copy this and place it in the head section, right? Which should now be a style sheet for fonts, for using font. You just come here and come up here, right? And paste it here. So, and that's it. So you'll be able to start, this will allow you connect to that Google Font and be able to use this Roboto style, right? And we have different ways here, 100, 300, 400, and the likes, right? So this will not work until you use it because you can see now that nothing works here. So what we can do is, as you are copying the code, you can also copy how to use it. So I just want to use the medium. So I will copy the font family, font weight, and all that. I can just copy this. So how you use this is you come in here. So inside the style tag, right? You target your body, the body of this document, and you set the style property. So here I'm just saying for this document, I want the font family to be Roboto, right? If this is not available for whatever reason, let it fall back to sans serif. Then font weight of 500, you can set it right to whatever is available here. Then font style, I want normal. You also have italics and all that, right? So that's just it. By just doing this, if I come back here, you can see that the text, the font has changed, right? So you can see that the font has changed. So that's just it. You can see that the font has changed. So what I want to do now is to quickly bring in the images, right? And we're almost there. So just let me bring in the images and the other data that I want to have like 10 data here. But if you can do this already, it's the same process. So now you will notice that I've populated the remaining data and now I have about 10 data here, right? You can see 001. This is the first row, second row to the last one here. Then another thing I did here is to just point to the images, right? I know it will take time watching me doing that. So you can see that I have access folder here. Again, this is going to be in the GitHub repo. I will put the link in the description. Make sure you check it. If you want to use this, reuse this images for practice, you can also do that, right? All I'm doing here is just pointing to that particular location of the asset that I want to use, the slash asset, right? Then I select the necessary images that are meant to be used there. So if you check here now, you see that the images are there, right? But it's not fine and it's not styled. So nothing fancy. What I just want to do here is quickly apply styles to this, right? So that it looks like we want it to look, right? Okay, I think I duplicated this process here. Okay, here. All right, so we have that. Then the style, again, let me just bring in the style and explain what is going on quickly, right? Um, so the focus here is just the HTML, right? Again, we'll still look at styling and how to work with CSS. All right, so I've brought in the style, and you can see that this is similar to what I explained right here, what I explained here when I was talking about CSS styles. Where is that? So the common styles that we have, right? What I explained there is just what I also did there with some extra stuff. So here I'm saying I'll target the table tag, and I'm saying the width should be 100%, which is going to stretch the table. Like you can see that the table is stretched now, right? And I've also applied other things. I'm just trying to explain what part of the CSS is responsible for all this, right? So here we have the border collapse. I mentioned that this ensures that all the borders are collapsed into one. Then the caption also, I target the caption, right, which is this, and I style it so that the font size can be bigger, right? You can see that this is bigger than what we had before. So I changed the font size to, what did I use? I think 3 rem units, right? Which is the unit of measurement when it comes to CSS. And I'm not going into that detail. We have several units, right? We have pixel, we have rem, we have am, and other. We have even a percentage and others. So, but for now, this is just 3 rem unit. Then the margin here is 15 pixel 0. Don't forget I said all elements are box are in the form of box, right? So there are spaces outside them. So the space outside an element is the margin. So I'm just saying the margin to the top and to the bottom, space to the top and to the bottom of this particular element should be 15. Then left and right should be 0. That's what it is saying. Then here we are doing group selector. I've explained what this is all about, applying the same style, right, to this particular group of elements, TH and TD. Then here we are saying, apart from this general style that we're applying to the two, let the table head have a background color of this off-white. And you see that this title here, which is the TH, is having that off-white color by default, right? Then we also have this pseudo selector. I've explained this. This is just selecting all even rows, right? And applying this background to them. And if you see here, without overing, you see that I have this hash value and the alternate colors between the odd rows and the even rows, right? Then what else on hover, right? When hover is also a pseudo selector, allows you to change the property of an element when you hover on it. So here, when I hover on the rows, I'm changing the color to this purple and the white, and that's the effect here. As I'm hovering, you can see that the color is changing, right? Then again, what did I do? For the status, just to differentiate the status, right? Processing is having color of purple, deliver is having color of green, cancelled is having this color of red. Not really red, but I'm using the RGB here, which is the red, green, and blue combination, right? That gives us this color. Then the width, the image too is restricted to maximum of 100 pixel, right? Then the height is determined by the browser. So that's just what the CSS here is all about. So if you're able to do this, good and cool, you've learned how to work with tables. Again, if you do like this content, don't forget to subscribe, right? Click on the notification so that once there are new contents, you get notified. Then also endeavor to like the video so that it can actually reach other people, because YouTube actually uses these metrics to show this content to other people that might be interested. Thank you. See you in the next section.